reaction on those inflation numbers?
It's time for this government and all of us to be serious about the economic situation that we're facing.
Joe Manchin has finally revealed to other lawmakers that he wants what he wants to hear from President Biden's Build Back Better bill. It is definitely hard to know sometimes what's going on in Senator Manchin's mind, but Manchin has revealed to his colleagues what he wants from President Biden's bill. And this is good news, everybody. On Wednesday, the West Virginia senator reiterated a familiar priority of his for the social spending bill that Democrats want to pass together. Manchin told reporters, just fix the tax code and just fix the taxes. Now, because previously Joe Manchin told reporters that he was against the $2 trillion package back in December, now it appears like Manchin is back on track and wants to move forward with negotiations on the spending bill. Late last year, Manchin said he voted to advance an earlier version of the Party bill because his top priority was rolling back the 2017 tax Republican cuts. He said he wanted to lift the corporate tax rate to 25% from its current level at 21%. But Manchin's central goal for the spending bill was derailed by another Democratic holdout like Kyrsten Sinema. Manchin and Mitch McConnell have repeatedly raised concern about rising inflation, which has again reached its high level in 40 years. A combination of persistent labor shortages and supply chain issues are pushing prices up across the board for groceries, gas, and housing. And the Federal Reserve is worried about keeping inflation at manageable levels. When asked by Insider if he could get more backing from the government spending, well, the West Virginia Democrat pointed to the nation's growing debt. He said we all got to be fiscally responsible when he said debt has gone to about $30 trillion. All the obligations we have, Medicare, Medicaid, independency on our retirees and all that. There's so many fiscal responsibilities, we have to get our house in order first. What are your thoughts on Joe Manchin, everybody? Tell me in the comments below. Now, New York Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez went on Twitter to criticize Manchin for his opposition to the current Build Back Better proposal. Ocasio-Cortez responded on Twitter to Manchin's recent statements, writing that she felt Manchin's opposition to the legislation flew in the face of those who most in need of it. This is definitely true, as the Build Back Better proposal, among other things, will work to expand programs to help those in poverty and destitution. In the Twitter post, Ocasio-Cortez wrote, "Seniors, kids, and people with disabilities in my community have been sleeping with jackets on in 18-degree nights. Something needs to be done. The Build Back Better bill by Joe Biden ahead of his inauguration, folks." So, I know many of you are wondering, what is included in this current version of the stimulus bill? Well, just know this. The Congressional Budget Office estimates that the legislation would increase the deficit by $367 billion over the next 10 years. But the White House has worked to make the case that this bill will be fully paid for when accounting for a proposal to enhance tax enforcement. What do you think about this, everybody? Tell me in the comments down below. And do you believe that President Biden is doing all that it takes to send out the fourth stimulus payment? Or do you believe that he should be doing more on this? Tell me your thoughts on Joe Manchin in the comments.
No more surprise billing. No more. Millions of hardworking Americans will no longer have to worry about unexpected medical bills, and Abigail has been making sure that we bring the same transparency to drug prices. A couple years ago, Abigail worked to pass a bipartisan legislation to make drug prices more transparent so you knew what you were paying for. Now, my administration is working with Abigail to make sure we enforce that. She also has been relentless in making sure the law that's been on the books that says pharmaceutical companies need to provide rural clinics and community health centers with discounts on prescription drugs, it's actually enforced. We're working together on that as well. I've long said health care should be a right, not a privilege in this country. This isn't a partner. Diabetes, Alzheimer's, cancer, they're not partisan issues. They're not Democrat or Republican. This is about whether or not you and your loved ones can afford the health care you need and the medicines you need to stay healthy. Because we need to ease the burden on working families by making everything more affordable and accessible. Look, again, slight digression. Inflation is up. It's up. And coming from a family when the price of gas went up, you felt it in the household, you knew what it was like, it matters. But the fact is that if we are able to do the things I'm talking about here, it'll bring down the cost for average families. Bring down the cost for average families. I don't know why they keep moving all that, but the fact is they keep down the cost for average families. And look, the fact is that we're in a situation now where you should have peace of mind. I know food prices are up, and we're working to bring them down. As I said, I grew up in a family where the price at the pump went up, you felt it, and I understand. But these things are necessities. We're working to bring down prices where they're not totally what families, in fact, have to pay now. You still have to pay for child care. Child care is a cost for millions of families. You still have to pay your prescription drug prices. You still have to pay for health care. You want to lower the cost of living for people, help them in those areas. So there's more than one way for a family when it comes to raising their standard of living.
The Republican leader.
Moments ago, the country got yet another terrible monthly inflation report under the Biden administration. Yet again, the data confirm what working families already know painfully well. Rampant inflation and soaring prices are crushing the American people. Experts had predicted another red-hot inflation report, around 7%. Even that alone would have meant we were still trapped inside the worst inflation in 40 years. But reality turned out to be even worse than that. Turns out inflation this past year hasn't been 7%, it's been 7.5%. In other words, if you haven't personally gotten a pay raise of 8% or more in the last year, then Democrats' policies have given you a pay cut. To add insult to injury, reporters say the worst of this inflation was driven by the most painful categories for working families: food prices, energy prices, and rent. This is not about financial inconvenience for wealthy people who can afford to stomach it. This is about massive price increases for essential goods that make up a huge share of working families' budgets. Gas is up about 40% since this time last year. Used car prices are up about the same. Meat, fish, and eggs cost over 12% more than they did just 1 year ago. The cost of natural gas for home heating has soared by 24% since this time last year. Fuel oil has shot up almost 47%. The cost of essentials has absolutely exploded since Washington Democrats took power. And to be clear, the worst inflation in 40 years is not something that just spontaneously